Hello, everybody, and welcome to Modern Highlighting by Schwarzkopf Professional. My name is Michelle Oliver, and I'm the Creative Content Manager for Schwarzkopf Professional, tuning in here from Edmonton, Alberta. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm very excited to go through this program with you today. It is all about blonding, all about foiling, and we're going to finish with a live demo of a very modern twist on one of our signature highlighting techniques. So we're going to get right started into the presentation. This is our agenda. The first thing we're going to do today is talk about the products, right? So what are the best products to use for foiling, for highlighting? What are some of our newer innovations? So we'll start with BLONDME. We'll go into IGORA, which is our signature color line, I would say as well. So looking at some of our permanent colors that lift over top of color treated hair. I know you guys want to hear a little bit more about that. And then also our lighteners and some of our additives. So how can we add pigment to our bleach products, right? And get a little lift and tone in one step that way as well. We'll go into the foundations of highlighting. So looking at how the hair moves and how we can place our foils to get the most effective results. And lastly, we'll finish with that modern halo technique, which is our signature foiling technique from Schwarzkopf Professional. However, we've evolved it sort of over the years to give you, especially for today's market, I think one of the most relevant sectioning and placements that you can use today. So that will be our agenda. Let's start with BLONDME. Also, actually, before we get right into it, if you do have questions throughout this presentation, we are on YouTube live today. So if you are tuning in live to this session, we do have Nico in the background. So thank you, Nico. He's going to be manning the chat. So if you have any questions as we go on, he's going to answer those for you. And if there's something that I can also help with to give you a bit more information, please ask for that, and Nico will help me make sure I hear all of your voices during the presentation. So, all right, now let's get started with BLONDME. Some of you might know or have already heard of some of the changes in the new exciting relaunch of BLONDME. It's one of our biggest, most well-known product assortments dedicated to blonde hair. So of course, before we get into foiling, let's just refresh on what's new with BLONDME. We know that blondes are one of the biggest parts of our business, but they also, or doing blonde hair can also cause the maximum amount of stress on the hair, right? So as we lift and we lighten, we have to make sure that we're giving the best care for the hair. So this hexagon that you see here is the signature dual bond system that BLONDME has. You'll see it on the can of lightener. You'll see it on the tubes of color. This hexagon means that the entire system is actually a bonding system. So we want strong bonds for strong blondes. So cute, kind of cheesy, but cute, right? So looking at what does this dual bond system actually mean, it means we have two parts to our bonding system. And this is going to be that guarantee that we're providing the maximum strength and health to the hair while we're lifting. So what are those two parts? There's bond protection and bond creation. When does the bond protection happen? That's happening in the lifting process. So that's happening in all of our lighteners, as well as our high lift blondes, and even now new within our toners. Okay, so on one side of the equation, we're seeing this little video. It looks really fun and exciting. It looks like a ladder. This is representing all of those disulfide bonds that keep the keratin strong. So in the bond protection phase, we have two things happening. One is anti-metal. So this is actually neutralizing metal ions in the hair so that they cause less damage, and we get more even lift with healthier hair. Okay, this is new within the powder lightener within our premium Lightener 9 Plus, as well as within our BLONDME Clay Lightener. So both of our lighteners have anti-metal technology to reduce the effect of metal ions causing issues with lifting or the health of the hair. The second thing we have is a 3D bond system that actually helps to stabilize the natural bonds within the hair as we're lifting. So this is also part of the lifting phase. Then we see the animation happening on the right here. This is bond creation. All the bond creation happens after the color is done. So while we're coloring, while we're lifting, we are protecting bonds. The second part to the bond system is after. So once we're shampooing that lightener out of the hair, we will start using the BLONDME Retail, some of the shampoos, masks. These are considered our step 2 to the system, which would be creating bonds. This actually helps us link up new bonds within the hair shaft and actually create stronger hair than what we had before. All right, so this is super cool. So let's take a look. Within our bond protection phase, as I mentioned, both of our lighteners, our bleach and tone, pastel toners, deep toning, all of that is going to protect the bonds. So what that means is when you see that hexagon, you don't need to add any additional bonding agent to your product. So no other bond solution is required. We've actually maximized and integrated the bond protection already into our lighteners and color. Okay, so don't forget too that toning is a crucial step to finishing that bond protection service. And the more bonds, the stronger bonds that we have, the longer our colors last. So who here wants to have a little bit of a longer lasting toner? I think everyone, every blonde would say yes to that, right? So this is super important. Okay, step 2, bond creation. As soon as we start to shampoo out our lightener with our rich blondes, all blondes shampoo, we already start to create bonds. Then we're going to tone the hair. So make sure you tone the hair first after shampooing your lightener, and then you're going to apply your mask. This is actually doing that deep penetration, creating that 3D bond effect, making sure that the hair is as strong and as healthy as possible. So bond creation happening there. The last step is step 3, which is maintaining those bonds. So we want to make sure that as our clients leave the salon, they have the right products at home to maintain the bonds and the strength of the hair between their salon visits. And that's where all of the BLONDME Retail comes in. So again, that hexagon, you're going to find bond creation system on all of the retail because that's your step 3 and that's your bond maintenance. All right, so just a little reminder on what the BLONDME system has in regards to bonding, and it really truly is your go-to bond system where it comes straight from the lightening to your toning to your at-home care and your in-salon services. With BLONDME, we always want to make sure we're using the BLONDME developers, okay? So these are premium care developers with a high oil content that actually helps to nourish, add shine, add condition to the hair, and really help to make sure that hair stays smooth and hydrated as we're lifting. So this is super important. It helps to give the maximum intensity out of our mixture. So that means that we have the maximum lift that we can get as well as the maximum care. Okay, so super, super shine. Always make sure that you're using the BLONDME developers. We have 4 developers within BLONDME, 7 volume, 20 volume, 30 volume, and 40 volume. So all of these can be used with either the high lifting shades, our toning shades, or our lightener. However, always remembering that with the premium lightener 9 Plus that I will go through, that is not recommended with our 12% 40 volume, only with the 30 volume or lower. So speaking of that, Premium Lightener 9 Plus. This is our go-to. Have we noticed there's a bit of a pack change? Okay, got a little facelift or a little bit of a makeover. And what is this change all about? It's really about really our eco footprint and the environment. So this new package, and also a little help for you guys in the salon, this new package, which you can see here as well. This is the new BLONDME Lightener, Premium Lightener 9 Plus package, and it is fully recyclable. It uses mono materials, which means the entire container is made up of the same recyclable material that actually makes it recyclable when you throw it out in that recycling bin. Previously, with the 2 different, we had metal plus paper and different materials together, it's not recyclable. So this is now fully recyclable. The other thing about the Premium Lightener 9 Plus package is that it's now stackable and it makes it a lot easier for saving salon space. So this is actually the same amount and the same size as the traditional can. On top of that, something new, no scoop in here. So we actually have a premium scoop that can be reused multiple times, really helping with that eco footprint. Okay, so let's talk about BLONDME. When do we use Premium Lightener 9 Plus when we're foiling or when we're highlighting? Where this is your go-to lightener when you're working on darker levels of hair or hair where you're looking to lift, and get the maximum amount of blonding. This is up to 9 levels of lift in 45 minutes. Okay, it's suitable for all hair colors. However, it's always usually what we go to when we're looking for the most lift possible to get the brightest blondes. Now, it does have an anti-yellow agent in it, so that's naturally built into the powder. However, what I'm going to share also is that we can increase the tonality and the neutralization by actually pigmenting this lightener as well. So did you know that you can pigment the BLONDME lightener? Okay, that's pretty exciting. Now we're going to mix this. It's a flexible mixing ratio, anywhere from 1 to 1.5 parts developer, all the way up to 2.5 parts developer. And that's really going to give you that flexibility to make it a bit thicker or a bit thinner, just based on your preference. All right, so some of the rules down here, we just want to make sure that we are, I'm just going to change that for a sec, that we're using this with our 7 volume or 20 volume for foiling, or if it's on scalp. If it's off scalp, then we can go up to 30 volume for our off scalp techniques. All right, and the processing time is anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. All right, so as I just mentioned, we can actually add pigment to our lightener with something kind of new, not totally new to the BLONDME assortment, but new in terms of the shades that we can use and how we can customize it. So this is called bleach and tone. This tube of pigment is actually specially coated so it can be added into your bleach with developer and actually neutralize unwanted orange, gold, or even red orange tones as we lift through the hair. We can use bleach and tone on any level 1 through 7, and it's really ideal when we want to, or when we're in color correction, or when we know we're going to expose those brassy tones. So I just want to show you, let's look at the pigments here. I just have the swatch here out as well. So this is the BLONDME Bleach and Tone assortment. We have our violet, which is the lightest, the most, or the best for neutralizing yellow. This is ideal on bases around level 7. This will get you a bright white blonde, or it can just neutralize that excess yellow if you haven't quite gotten that light. So I'm going to give you an example of what the violet looks like when it comes to our swatches here. So here is an example of lightener, so premium lightener 9+ with no additive. You can see the yellow that's still left in the hair. And this swatch is on the exact same level, but we've added 1 gram of our bleach and tone violet. Is that not crazy? Look at how much that neutralizes and gets you that bright white blonde. So violet is ideal for neutralizing yellow. Then we have our ash additive, which is more of a blue violet base for neutralizing orange. This is ideal at levels 5 and 6. So you know when you're dealing with a lot of orange in the hair, it's such, the struggle is real, angry orange. This is where we would get a little bit more neutralization using the ash additive. And then at our darkest levels where we have a lot of red undertones, so levels 1 through 4, we would recommend you add the matte additive, which actually has a blue-green tone direction. So we don't always want green in the hair, but when we're trying to cut red, we absolutely do. So working with the additive of matte at those really dark levels, or maybe if you're lifting over intense red hair color and you're really trying to get a cooler result, that's where you would add this additive. Now, all 3 can be added in different intensities. So we can have an intense mix and a soft mix. When we're working with the intense mix, this is the chart that you'll actually find even inside the actual color chart. The new BLONDME color chart that's out has this guide as well. But if you're watching today, maybe snap a photo. So looking at the mixing ratios, we have both intense and soft mixes. When it comes to the intense mix, the maximum of the bleach and tone that we would want to add is 15 grams. So that's 15 grams, about a quarter of a tube, to a full scoop of your lightener. Okay, now that's if you're working on those really dark levels and you want the maximum amount of neutralization. However, if you just want a little bit of tone direction, you don't want the shade to actually be overtaken, but you want to control a little bit. That's like this example here, where we went from yellow to more of a white blonde. This is actually the soft mix, and also recommended that you can use this mixture on scalp because you use as little as 1 gram or 1 milliliter of the bleach and tone additive into that full scoop of powder lightener, right? So you can go 1 to 15 grams of any of the additives. Now, if it comes to, or when it comes to developer, we're going to follow this little guideline and just we'll do a little math here. We always put 1 full scoop of our powder lightener, so that's our 35 grams. Any amount of bleach and tone additive, we're going to minus that number from the developer that we would normally mix to a 35 gram scoop. So if I put 35 grams of my lightener, normally I would double the developer and it would be 70 grams of developer. When I add bleach and tone, let's say I add 5 grams of bleach and tone into that mixture, then I'm only going to add 65 grams of the developer. Okay. If I add 1 gram of bleach and tone, I'll do 69 grams of developer. So it's always creating a total of 70, the bleach and tone and the developer, right? Because that's the double to the 1-to-2 mixing ratio for 1 full scoop of lightener. All right. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that with you guys. When we are doing our foiling techniques and we're working on those really dark bases, I would highly recommend just even start out with 1 to 5 grams. Start low and build your way up to going a little bit stronger. Start to get to know the tone direction. It can be such an amazing option to get you those cooler, brighter blondes. And as well, possibly to pre-tone the hair if you're going to even cooler tone directions. So it's already setting you up for success. Now on this guide, you can see you can use these mixtures on scalp with the lower or softer mixing ratios. And if it's off scalp, then we can add a little bit more. And that's mainly just because that natural level or that virgin hair that's going to be on scalp usually doesn't have the same pigment intensity or buildup. And it's also that softer keratin and easier to lift. So we don't want to overtone at that new growth area. That's why we've dropped down and made it lower amount or recommended less amounts of the additive when we're working on scalp. And lastly, you're going to see in the bottom corner here that we actually have a guide for adding these pigments to your clay lightener. So if you are working with a freehand balayage technique with BLONDME clay lightener, we do also recommend adding bleach and tone. So that is really exciting. So the mixing ratio here is actually 1 to 1.5 parts developer. Any amount of bleach and tone that you add, again, just minus it from the amount of developer that you would normally add. So you always are going to add up to 45 grams of your lightener with developer. All right. So let's keep going into more BLONDME. So BLONDME has a full toning series. If you did not know, if you thought BLONDME was just the bleach, I'm here to tell you otherwise. So we do have a full series of toners and we've got some new colors in the toning shades. Just as a reminder, these are really great toners because they are ammonia free, they are demi-permanent, and they can be used bottle application or bowl and brush. So they're kind of just the right consistency. We do have quite a bit of an assortment here. They're all anti-metal bond protection built in, as well as a hydrolock technology, which really provides moisture and balances the moisture levels within the hair as we're toning. So pH neutral, ammonia free. This is not going to lift the natural color. You can use this to tone fragile, light blonde hair. Or we even have our deep toners, which I'll talk about in a minute, if you need a little bit more intensity. Okay. Mixing ratio with the pastel blonde toners is 1 part of your toning shade to 1 part of your 7 volume or your 2% developer. So mix 1 to 1 and you can apply that to shampooed, towel, dried hair. Process visually, right? But anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. Okay. Let's go into the shades. Full shade assortment here, something new. We have 8 different colors or 8 different tone directions: steel blue, ice irisé. We have our ice, which is our most popular. That just gives you that nice sort of like Elsa silver platinum. We have sand and biscuit, as well as brown mahogany. If you have not tried this, this is going to be amazing for fall. Then we have our strawberry and our lilac. So lots of shades, all intermixable. What's new to BLONDME is we've just added the BLONDME Clear. So this clear tone can actually dilute the intensity of all of our toning shades, and it helps to give you a bit more control on finer hair, possibly the hairline. Maybe if you have a lot of hair to tone and you don't want it to overtone or go too fast, your clear can really help you dilute that intensity, customize the shade, and provide more control to that tonal deposit. When we use the toning clear, you're just going to add however much you like. You can really go at as much as you like. to any shade. As much of the clear that you add, you always add equal parts of your 7 volume developer. So let's say I really love strawberry. It's quite intense if you've ever used strawberry. It's got a lot of tone direction to it, which is amazing. But sometimes if you just want that kiss of pink, right? Maybe I'm going to mix in half clear with half my strawberry. If I had 20 grams of strawberry and 20 grams of clear, I would add 40 grams of my 7 volume. Apply that to the hair and you still have anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to visually process that toner. Once you're done, you're just going to rinse the hair clean and then apply your All Blondes bonding mask, right? This is what's going to help create those new bonds, which helps keep the color in the hair and also makes the hair stronger and healthier. All right, so I said we have these, which are light and pastel. These are ideal for anyone who's been pre-lightened to level 9 or lighter. Some of the more intense shades can tone on a level 8, so that kind of darker, angry yellow, but not any darker than that. So it depends on the shade. The more intense colors have a soft tonality on a level 8. Ideally, though, for these, level 9 or lighter, so that outside of the banana to the inside of the banana yellow. Now we also have deep toners. So deep toners are fabulous for a root shadow. They're great for low lights. They're great for toning excess warmth on super brassy dark hair like orange or red-orange tones throughout the hair, but really great for doing color melting, creating that depth, especially at the natural regrowth. I know we do a lot of tap roots or root shadows these days, and we have everything that you need within the BLONDME system to accommodate all of those trending techniques. So same thing, they are demi-permanent, okay? So these are ideal for anyone who's been pre-lightened or even their natural level, 5 to 8. Okay, this is going to work great mixed exactly the same way as our pastels, so just 1-to-1 with your 2% 7 volume developer. And again, you're going to process anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes if you're toning on pre-lightened hair. If you're doing a base color or a full color with these shades, you can see there's lots of options here. That's when you're actually going to process the full 20 minutes, just like you would a traditional demi-permanent. All right, so here's your shades in your tone direction, and we have something new here as well, which is called Peach Sorbet. Okay, so all of these shades are perfect for those darker levels, but they do kind of have an ideal base. Working with the deep chestnut, this is actually one of my favorite colors. If you haven't tried this, it's like perfection for level 5, level 6. Ideal base, you can use it on a level 5 to 7. And the tone direction here is approximately a level 5 with a chocolate matte, okay, tone direction. So if you were to compare to IGORA Royal, it would be like a -6.3. Then we have our granite. So that's like similar to a 6-12, so a level 6 Cendré Ash. And this is ideal again for levels 5 to 7. Granite is like, think of the stone granite. It's cool, it's dark, it's going to be perfect for neutralizing orange. So if you really are stuck with orange, this can turn orange into brown, right? So that would be awesome. Then we have nougat. It's a little bit lighter. Nougat is a 6-46 sort of tone direction, so kind of like a level 6 beige chocolate. And then lastly, in the regular assortment, we have milk chocolate. So that's kind of our lightest of the natural tones. That's for a level 7 to 9. And it's similar to a level 7 Cendré Violet. So really nice, cool, almost like powdery, smoky, level 7, perfect for your clients who are level 6, 7 naturally, or even level 8, and they need a little bit of that root shadow or color melt, or possibly even a low light. It does have a nice cool tone direction. So think of like 7-19 if you were to relate it to IGORA Royal. And then lastly, but definitely not least, we have Peach Sorbet. So Peach Sorbet is really all about the biggest trending color for this fall season, which is copper. Now, what you see on the swatch here is slightly more subtle than the example I'm going to show you in a minute. So Peach Sorbet truly has a copper tone direction, but it has a little bit of beige and cendré built into it. The reason being is when we use peach colors and copper colors, often as a toner, we're applying them over top of those yellowy bases or maybe a little bit of that orange yellow base. So we want to subtly control that and create a really nice modern tone. This is an ideal shade for anyone pre-lightened, level 7 to 9, but we can also use it on even lighter hair, which I'll show you an example in a minute. So in comparison to IGORA Royal, this shade would be most similar, Peach Sorbet, to a level 8-741. So that sounds a little crazy, right? But it's -7, so level 8-7, which is copper, and then the beige and the violet. All right, so just quickly, I'm going to show this example here of Peach Sorbet. This is actually applied to a level 10 blonde. So imagine it being applied to that nice light, pale blonde. This is at maximum intensity, you can see here, right? And then this is actually mixed 1-to-1 with our clear. So you can see it starts to soften a little bit. And then over on this side, we've actually got this mixed 10-to-1 with our clear. So you can see it can create even softer results. Super versatile, clear, toning pastel clear can be added to any of the deep toners as well. So that really like opens up the world of what colors that we have to offer within BLONDME. All deep toners are intermixable with pastels, so lots of shades to choose from. And then the addition of peach really just brings the warmth into the BLONDME assortment that we've always needed. All right. Last but not least, when it comes to BLONDME, we also have for toning what we call base breakers. So base breakers, sometimes breaking the base or bumping the base is something that we do as a hairdresser like a hack or like a trick. So we might find our own way to make that happen, where we're able to lift the natural hair slightly and also tone the blonde in one step. That's exactly what base breakers are. That's what they're designed for. So they come in these little bottles, right? They kind of look like the IGORA Vibrance bottles, and it is a liquid color. We're going to mix these though 1-to-1 with the BLONDME Premium Care Developers. So that's going to be your traditional BLONDME developer, either 7 volume or 20 volume. If you're working on fine hair, use 7 volume. If you're working on coarser textures of hair or maybe darker levels, then you can use 20 volume to make sure that you get that one level of lift. Okay, so they're gonna lift the natural virgin hair one level and also tone your blonde highlights at the same time. Processing time is about 10 minutes. So you're looking at a pretty quick timing to be able to basically color the natural and tone your highlights all together. And I'm gonna show you the shades. So we have 3 colors to choose from. We have soft cool, cool, and extra cool. So very similar to almost like our additives, we have a specific tone direction for each level. So it just depends on which amount of underlying pigment that you have to expose. So your soft cool is more of your violet tone direction, kind of like a -1. And that one's going to be ideal for neutralizing yellow and also for those lighter bases, so 7 to 9. Then your cool is going to be a bit stronger, so more like a -2, like your ash color. And that would be perfect if you're toning over orange hair or you're going to expose a little bit more of an orangey base. So around a level 5 to 7. And then your extra cool, you want to bump the base on like level 1 to 4 or those darker level 4s. You want to use extra cool. That's going to help you to control the underlying pigment, give you that little bit of base break. And it's also perfect for toning over top of like a brassy orangey color. So ideal for those darker bases. Okay, so lots to choose from there. Really great. I love doing a little base break. I feel like it reminds me of like those brighter summery blondes, and especially with warmth becoming more of like a story with trends for blondes, pulling a little bit of warmth or lightness out of that natural base almost looks sun-kissed, like they've had a really lovely summer and the hair just lightened naturally in the sun. So that's kind of how I feel it creates that change in that natural base just with that one level of lift. Okay, we're gonna get into IGORA, and then we'll go straight into our modern foiling technique. So hopefully you guys are all doing well. Again, if you have any questions about BLONDME or the products that we've gone through so far, please don't be shy. Nico is there. Chat with him, say hello, just pop in your message and he will definitely get back to you. All right. So we're going to get into IGORA. We also have powder lighteners within IGORA. So when would we use these ones? BLONDME, we know it's 9 levels of lift. It's when we're working on those the darker hair types, or we're looking for the maximum amount of lift possible. We also have our traditional classic lightener, really, truly, that's been with us or been a part of our portfolio for over 20 years, which is IGORA Vario Blonde Plus. Okay, this is a blue powder lightener. It's dust-free. It lifts 7 levels. We don't always need 9 levels, right? Like sometimes you need only up to 7. And we can work with this lightener with great control over how fast it lifts. And also it is also intermixable with one of our additives, which is the IGORA Cool additive. So you can pigment this lightener as well. So working with the BLONDME, BLONDME, IGORA Vario Blonde Plus, we're going to mix this 1 to 2. So the mixing ratio is fixed. 1 part of our powder lightener to 2 parts of our developer. We can use any of our developers, 10, 20, or 30 volume in the IGORA Royal family. So the IGORA Royal red bottles. If you're using 30 volume, this is for off scalp only. So we do a maximum of 20 volume on scalp. And like I said, mixing ratio 1 to 2. Development time is 20 to 45 minutes, and we don't recommend heat actually with any of our lighteners, so that's just a best practice. We get enough heat from the natural head, from the natural body heat. We don't need to add any additional, so this will just process at room temperature up to 45 minutes. All right, and Vario Super Plus. This is actually one of my favorite lighteners. If you have not tried this, definitely please do. It's a white powder. Okay, and what's cool about that is even though it's a white powder, it still has anti-yellow agents that help to neutralize and break down brassy yellow pigments, especially at those lighter levels. So you still get on its own a nice clean lift. However, if we do want to add pigment to it, we can add our cool lift or our additives, and we can get even more an actual true tone neutralization by adding in those pigments. So we always have that flexibility for all of our powder lighteners. If you want a lift and tone in one step, you just add in your additive. So with the white powder, one of the things I do like about it though, is that it does lift a little bit more. So it lifts up to 8 levels. So 1 extra level of lift over and above IGORA Vario. But also because the powder is white, there's no illusion of how light the blonde is or how yellow the blonde is. You see it exactly clear as it is, which means you don't make any of those little mistakes where we rinse too soon or you think the blonde is ready. What you see is what you get, which I love. IGORA Vario Super Plus is also intermixed with the IGORA Royal developers in a mixing ratio of 1 to 2, and the processing time is 20 to 45 minutes. So when is a good time to use this lightener versus the other one? We know that IGORA Vario is great for maybe a little bit more control or a little bit more targeted lift where you're not trying to get maybe 9 levels. So we have that 7 levels. For this one, because it's white and it does lift a little extra, this is actually a great lightener to work with for corrective color. You know, maybe you are working on some pretty different canvases within the same head of hair, and you really want to see how the lift is going, as well as have that still that high lifting potential of up to 8 levels. That's where this is a fantastic lightener. I also really love this for on scalp personally, and you might as well, because it actually gives you that really nice clean application. And again, you can see exactly what you get. Processing time, 20 to 45 minutes. So same thing for all of our lighteners. And again, we don't recommend any heat with this powder lightener. Now, the other thing you'll find on all of our lighteners is that little hexagon. Again, it looks a little different than the BLONDME one, but it's the same shape. And what it says in there is fiber bond technology built in. So both of our Vario lighteners already have bonding additive pre-mixed and maximized in the formula. So you do not need to add or measure any additional bonding agent already in there. And then you can finish with rinsing out these lighteners, shampoo with your BLONDME, all blondes shampoo, and condition or treat the hair with the bonding mask, right? That's going to complete the service. All right, so I talked about additives. We talked about the cool additive and the additives in BLONDME. So this is the additive that we can mix into our lightener when it comes to Vario. Our two Vario lighteners can both be mixed with this one additive. It is a cool tone direction, so a violet blue, probably most similar to the ash in BLONDME, the ash additive. So this is going to neutralize yellow or orange yellow, and you can use the similar mixing ratio of 1 to 15 grams of it. So for any natural base or color treated base, level 3 to 7. We do recommend this one for off-scalp techniques only, and you can use it with a little bit of a higher developer, because when we add the maximum of our cool lift, it will, in IGORA Vario, reduce the lift just slightly, which allows you to use 40 volume, right? Because normally we say don't use 40 volume, but because this product has no lifting capability, we can add a higher developer when we're working on darker bases, right? Just because the additive is in there. Processing time here is up to 60 minutes. So that's for maximum lift as well as maximum deposit of tone. So here is your mixing guide. So a little bit simpler than the BLONDME one, just a few less options, but really easy to work with. Anywhere from 5 to 15 milliliters or 15 grams of the additive of the cool lift can be mixed to 1 full scoop of either of your Vario powder lighteners. So same rules apply. We're mixing 1 to 2 with our developer, but we're going to remove the whatever amount of bleach and tone, whatever amount of cool additive. We're going to remove that and kind of minus that from the developer that we're going to add. So if it's normally 70 grams, then I know if I add 5 grams of my cool lift, I put 65 grams. You can see in the middle there, if I use 10 grams of my cool lift, I'm going to use 60 grams of my developer. So always the same. And on the darkest level that's really where we recommend that 15, that maximum. But as you go lighter on the natural bases that you're working on, you're going to use less and less of the additive, because it really does the job. It's quite effective, and we don't need to overdo it. Personally, I would say again here, start with 1 to 5 grams, build from there, see how it affects the blonde. And always remember that this is for neutralizing unwanted tone. So you always want to use this when you're expecting excess warmth from the hair. Please don't apply any of our additives, whether it's BLONDME or Cool Lift, over top of already existing light blonde hair, right? Because that blonde hair already being light is basically just going to sit and have that cool tone sit on top of it. So we want to avoid any overtoning and always use this when we're expecting and we are exposing warmth, yellow, orange yellow, or even red orange. Okay. Last but not least, in IGORA, something else that does lift and tone in one step. This is actually color. This is our permanent color line, has a specialty series called Fashion Lights. And Fashion Lights also has integrated bonding technology. So we have the full protection of the hair. We're able to lift through color treated hair with color and also add tone direction. So this is pretty cool. These shades, we have a few different options of tone directions, but they all lift 5 levels or up to 5 levels on virgin natural hair and up to 2 levels on color treated hair, which is pretty cool. We always want to mix them 1-to-1 with 12% 40 volume developer. That's what's going to get us that lift. And they are for off scalp only. So this is a highlighting series only. Okay, so working with these shades, process anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, full 45 minutes for the maximum amount of lift. So here are the shades that we have. These are also known as the L series. So the L series is, again, Fashion Lights, lift and tone, color that lifts color. So we all heard that rule in hair school that color does not lift color. This is the rule breaker. We have 5 shades. We have L-00. This is a neutral tone. It will expose almost whatever is in the hair, so it'll just work with the natural base. Usually this will produce a lighter golden blonde highlight. Then we have L-44, has a little bit of that beige additive in there, or not additive, but beige tone direction. So it will soften the tonality of the blonde a bit, give you a little bit of tone, and really kind of have a softer sort of caramel effect. Our 3 on the bottom, these are my favorite personally, and especially the copper these days because it's so on trend. But these are your fashion tones. So these are actually quite vibrant, very intense. They have specific direct dyes or bright pigments that live within the tube that actually help to get you some of the most vibrant, almost vivid or neon or funky colors even on color treated bases. So love these. We have L-77, which is an intense copper tone, L-88, which is our pure sort of cherry red, and the L-89, which almost has more of like that raspberry fuchsia tone direction to it. They can all be intermixed as well. And if you want to control the intensity and try playing a little bit more creatively, you can actually add the L-00 in with any of the ones at the bottom to sort of reduce the intensity. Personally, I really like doing that with the copper as well, because it just gives you all of these different, I mean, this is not the same thing, but it can dilute the shade. So by adding L-00, it gives you more options to create more peach colors or softer copper tones, just depending on what your client is looking for or the shade that you're trying to achieve. So yeah, once again, these are for off scalp only, 1:1, 40 volume. Color treated hair, we want to use them on level 6 or darker. If the client is already a level 7, then we can achieve a lot of these shades just with our regular color. So we're really looking for level 6 or darker. Not to be applied over blonde. So I think that encompasses anything level 6 or darker. All right, we are moving into highlighting. So now that we have an idea of some of our key product choices, what we might use, now let's talk about actually the techniques and the applications of those foils. First thing is lines and directions. This is such an important part of foiling. When we are working with highlighting on any person, the density of the hair matters, the angles of our foils matter, the thickness of the slice that we take. Everything comes into play to give us that end result. So here is just an example of where we can see the difference between placing a full slice of color or a weave of color vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. Okay, so if I take a full slice, let's say a nice thin slice as a foil, and I look at the left-hand side here, this is showing me what that effect that's going to have in the hair when it's vertical, right? And what that actually gives you in its passive state. So a passive state means it's sitting still. Is a very high, obvious amount of contrast. Because if you think of that vertical foil or that vertical slice, the hair just keeps piling over top of itself. It's always going to give you maximum contrast to place the foil vertically, right? When it moves, you're going to get a little bit more softness to it if the hair was curled, for example, but you're always going to see that high contrast. Okay, then if we go into the middle, that's horizontal. Let's say we take that vertical foil and now we turn it and now we're horizontal. It's actually like shifting the focus and it's going to become very blurred. So in a passive state where it's just lying on top of the hair, it's going to look very, very shattered, right? The same thickness of slice, but just placed differently. When it moves, you might see, if you're doing a block color, for example, you might see the tone underneath and the layer of color over top. But truly, it's probably one of the most natural looks and will create a very soft diffusion of color. Then on the far right, we have diagonal, right? Diagonal is almost like that happy medium. It's just in between. So in its passive state, when it's sitting still, you can see, you get contrast, you get some dimension, but it's not too stark. It's not too high contrast. And then even as it moves towards the tips of the hair, you're still going to see a little bit of that definition and the separation between the light and the dark. So that's why I think when we look at balayage or placing our foils in V shapes or working with V lines, these are all diagonals. And all that does is creates that happy medium between contrast and diffusion. So yeah, you're always making choices, right? Every time you place a foil, you make a choice. So think about those things. Now, of course, this is a best practice, right? So just talking about how much hair we put in that slice and in that foil. Saturation matters and size matters. So looking on the left-hand side, we can look at the size of the weave that we take. If we take it very, very fine, of course, that's going to be very, very soft. So now imagine fine and horizontal. That's going to be the most natural looking foil. If we take a little bit thicker section, we're going to see larger pieces, larger contrast, but we have to make sure that that section is easily saturated. Because when we look on the right, we also know that saturation matters, right? So if we're using those thicker slices or thicker weaves, make sure that you get both sides, that you really put enough product so you don't end up unsatisfied with the amount of lift when you go with the thicker pieces. Now, in terms of saturation, because we do a lot of sweeping, right? A lot of balayage, a lot of foliage these days, we're not always taking a clean slice and saturating regrowth to ends. Because of that, when we look at the slice on the right-hand side, it's more swept up. So we have to recognize that anytime that we do that and we're not fully saturating that hair and soaking it in that product, we're going to get less lift than what we have below. So we always want to think about the size of the sections and also the saturation in terms of the lift that we're going to get as the end result. Okay, so lastly, the size of the weaves versus the color of the hair and the color of the base. What this shows you, of course, on the left-hand side is your, almost like your baby light, right? Your baby microweave. So that's going to be quite natural in the hair. This is 7 to 10 sort of pickups within one foil. Then we have our center there, which we'll consider classic. So it's like a medium size weave, 4 to 6 pickups within one foil. You start to see more contrast. Then we go bold, and we get into that really thick, high contrast foil or weave, sorry. So that's 2 to 3, even just in one strand. That's going to give you, of course, the maximum amount of contrast between the light and the dark. Now, something I really love about this slide is actually when looking at the top example of those colors together, they're actually quite similar. You're looking at almost like a level 7 in with a level 9. So of course they don't look as contrast, especially with the bold sectioning on the far right versus below. Now I have a very dark section, almost a level 4 in with a level 10. So we also have to consider how dark is the low light, for example, that we're going to add to the hair? How much contrast is there between the light of the blonde and the dark that we add? Or how light we go with our blonde? That will also affect the end result. So I don't know if you've ever been in this situation where you've added some low lights to the hair and you think that you're doing big sections, but it doesn't even show up in the end. And of course, sometimes we're afraid to add more depth to the hair because adding a low light can be a little bit scary. You don't want to take away the vibrancy of the blonde. So if you are doing something that is lighter for your low light, go bigger with your weaves. If you're doing something darker, maybe you're going to do thin slices on a diagonal so you get that dimension, but you're not overtaking the contrast, right? It all depends on what you're doing. And this is, just all about making choices. All right, team, we are towards our demo portion of this segment, which is the halo technique. So now that we've talked products, we talked application, now we're going to actually get into the technique itself. And I'm going to show you this diagram here. So for those of you who don't know, we do have within Schwarzkopf Professional a signature foiling technique called the halo technique. This actually used to be given out in any package. If you've been around with us for a while, in any package of Quick Ways, you'd actually, in the little folding pamphlet that came with it, it would actually have the halo technique in there. We've been teaching this technique for probably 20 years or more. And it could not be more relevant, the sectioning and the angles and the placement than it is today. So I'm really excited. I'm going to walk you through this technique and I'm going to show you a little bit of a demonstration on what we can expect and how to make it the most modern version that we can. So before we go into my full screen, I'm just going to walk you through what we're looking at here. When you section the hair for this foiling technique, it has a signature sectioning. So we're always going to work with what you see here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are your sections, right? In the section, how we foil can be altered. We can change the angle of the foil. We can change the thickness of the slice that we take. We can do a weave. So really, it can be altered. This sectioning can be altered in so many different ways to accommodate whatever it is that you're going after. So that's why it's a signature technique. It's a way to section. It's a way to organize yourself. And it can be altered in all the ways that you need to make it the most modern for your clients today. So what is the sectioning? Basically on the far left, we see here, we're going to have our section at the bottom nape, which is from the back of the ear to the back of the ear. This is going to section off the entire nape area. Okay, so that's going to be one section for you. Then on the top of the head, we're going to section from the recession to the recession. So you can see on the far right, we've basically got a halo sectioning. So recession to recession and through the crown. So that's where it's going to cross through on your client's head. That really brings the whole top of the hair up, everything that will move across the top. So we're going to work this whole section as our final and last application. What that leaves now is the middle. So in the middle of the head, between your nape and the halo, you have your center section. Okay, so this is sections 3 and 4. And that's essentially just above the occipital bone and just below the crown. And all we've done is taken that section and split it into 2 in the center back. All right, now when we work through this section, we are going to work on different angles. So when we look at the back nape area, you can see in the center part of the image that we're actually going to work on a diagonal, right? So we're going to work through that section very quickly. We don't need a lot of foils there, but we're going to work on a diagonal line, and that's going to create a lot of softness in the nape area. Then when we work through the center back, you can see that this is actually vertical sections. And what is vertical going to do? It's going to give us contrast. So we're going to work through these sections in vertical slices. And there is a little trick to the side that I will show you as well that creates softness along the hairline. But ultimately, we end up as vertical all the way through that middle section. And then on the top, you can see we're back to diagonal. And why this again works great is on that diagonal line, we get lots of diffusion. We get lots of movement. We have contrast, but not too much, right? So the top is all on that, almost like a chevron. So when you look at the top of the head, you're going to be working one section of that top on the same angle all the way through. And it almost creates like an arrow or a chevron look on the very top of the head. So what this does is when the hair falls down to the side, it's always going to have nice movement no matter where you part it. So you can part to the left or the right, we still section straight down the center. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a few things. We're going to go big screen here, and I'm going to walk you through this placement. So I will just exit out of here, and hopefully, sorry, I forgot. Nico, thank you for doing this for me. Okay, perfect. All right, so I can kind of see what you guys are seeing at this point. I'm going to walk you through this placement using a little bit of an up close example. All right, so here's my sectioning. I do have my nape, and I'm going to show you on one side how it's sectioned, on the other side how I've applied it, and then I'm going to do a demonstration for you on this mannequin with some back combing that gives you, basically with the same section, the feeling of a very modern technique. All right, so here's my mannequin. In the very back, sectioned through the center, it's actually all the way through the top, right? Center to back. Then across the occipital bone, I've got my lower section or my nape area blocked off. And then you can see through the middle here, that's my center section. So when I start my foiling, I'm going to work in the nape area. One of the ways we can do that is by using quick ways, which I will show you on my demonstration. And you can actually work in a full slice if you want in these sections. I'm just going to take this straight out right in front of you guys here. So look at, I've just done a little bit of a foil along the hairline and worked through the center section. And I've actually stopped right at the behind the ear, which also encompasses right down to the hairline. You can also see I've done a little bit of a W shape with my last slice. So just when I'm applying it, doing it a little bit more natural. So as I do my demo, just keep this in mind that this is actually only 3 foils, and it encompasses the entire hairline in the back of the head in terms of how much lift and how many foils you need to do to get that really nice bright pop of color. That leaves me this little section in the middle. If I want to, I can continue through this section on the exact same angle, just a couple more slices or weaves, whatever you choose, and that will finish up the back. Okay, I would do the same thing on the other side. So really starting with, oh, what did I do? There's my comb. Really starting with that angle, right? That 45-degree angle, and then moving into the center. Okay, so I'm going to start that on my little demonstration with my lady here. I'm going to be working with the BLONDME Premium Lightener 9 Plus because she is a little bit darker, this base, lovely model. So working off of that hairline, with Premium Lightener 9 Plus, I've mixed this 1:2 with my developer. Gotta love when you have a little hair in there, right? With 6% 20 volume. So that's what I'm starting with here. Now this could be an option to add violet pigment possibly, because I think I'd be able to lift her up to a gold. So I might put some violet in there. If you think you're gonna get stuck at orange, then maybe I might put the ash additive. So it really just depends how light you're going to rinse it out at. That's where those pigments are going to start to neutralize. So you want to pick your additive that you would mix with your lightener based on the underlying pigment that you're going to expose. That is your best bet. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to use, in the back section, I'm going to use Quickways. So Quickways are an option. They're not a must, they're an option. These are kind of a little bit tackier than foil. They stick to color quite well. And often we're going to use these with a board. So I'm going to show that as well. I mean, there's all kinds of boards out there. This one I've had for quite some time. We used to make these ones, which is lovely. But any type of a fashion or highlighting board should work just fine. I'm going to start my section, like I said, on that little bit of that diagonal. Okay, so it should be a slight tilt, sort of angling backwards. Anything that I apply on the hairline, I want this to be a weave for the most part. So usually I wouldn't start with a full slice if it's going to sit along the hairline. Now here, when I'm working on that full slice, I'm just going to tilt her in my direction a little bit. When I'm working on that foil, excuse me, not that full slice, I'm going to take almost like a little baby micro weave. And it can touch the hairline. It can be a little bit off of the hairline, just right behind. Sometimes people have those little baby hairs. Just kind of whisk those out so that we're not dealing with them. And then actually when they fold back over the hair, it tends to blend a little bit of that root area. So yeah, don't worry if you have too much hairs kind of out along the hairline. Generally, it will help blend anyways. Okay, so I'm going to line up my Quickway. Again, these are lighter than foil. They hold the natural heat as well. I'm going to place this foil or this highlight, and I'm going to feather this pretty much right up to the scalp if I can. This is kind of nice if people do wear their hair up in a ponytail. I personally actually have this technique on my head, so that because I love to wear my hair in a ponytail and I like to have a few highlights. And I know we have a lot of clients out there that are like that. Okay, so I'm always making sure I'm getting full saturation. If I go in horizontally with my brush like this, that's always nice. But when I really want to saturate it and get that product through and tighten up the foil, I'm going to go quite close to the section on a vertical. Then I'm just going to fold up in half and drop it. Okay, so that is one of my favorite things about using Quickways is how quick they are. Because you're not folding things up like origami, right? Like you're saving time just on the fact that you only have to fold once. So now I'm coming in again. I'm going to show this angle to you. So hopefully you can see that there. I'm coming in just behind that same foil. So this is foil number 2. And I'm going to take a full slice now that I'm off of the hairline. Okay, so technically, yes, I touched the hairline here, but the center of this highlight is really, it's really in the interior now. I'm not quite right on the hairline the whole way. So I'm going to show you this. So here's my slice. It's not fully on the hairline because I got my little baby light right there, but it does touch on the corner and on the corner here. So I'm gonna get the actual highlights that I need to show up, and also lots of blonde along the hairline. The reason a full slice is nice is you get a bit more definition to the tips of the hair. If you've ever done a lot of baby lights, you know that sometimes in the end, it doesn't actually show up as contrast in the tips of the hair. You might see the foil or you might see the weave more closer to the scalp and see the definition between that highlight and the natural. But when it comes to seeing that color all the way to the ends, when it's a weave, it tends to get lost, right? So I'm going in with my full slice. That's why I like them on a diagonal, as close to the regrowth as I can. And then again, I'm just going to fold up my foil. Okay. Alternative to this that I also like to do, I'm going to take one more slice, and this should bring me usually 3 foils on almost anybody. Will bring you right from the corner of the ear to the back nape. It's fast and it's easy, especially if you just want to do a partial highlight. This would be a great section for that. So again, I'm just going to pull this together a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, now I'm all ready from the center back to the behind the ear, and I've just done the 2 foils. This next section, if you want quite a bit of blonde here, but you don't want to have that harsh line, it's just along the hairline, but barely. I'm going to leave one little piece out, one little slice out in the middle. Right? And here is where I'm going to do that V shape. So I showed you on the other mannequin. It's actually a W. So now I'm creating definition from the way that I saturate, but I am fully saturating everywhere on that foil. So this is great for foliage. Anybody doing foliage techniques? It gives you, I like a W a little bit better than a V actually, because then I get a little high of that foil right through the center of the hair. So I'm going to try to show you guys this way a little. It's hard. I have to twist myself into a pretzel, but it's okay for the greater good. Okay, so I'm going to start here on each side. So there's no back combing here, right, of any kind, which gives me the ability to really, really saturate, but I still need to feather. So I've got it on each side here and here. That's like I'm starting a V, but then I'm going to go into the middle. Move my hand to the side, and now I have like a W effect. Okay, so we want to make sure lots of saturation on the pieces that we do hit with that lightener, that we're not missing anything. Let me tie up those ends a little bit. I'm going to do 1 second. Show how that's applied. Okay, so we have it high up on each side and high up through the middle, but there's actually some hair that's untouched in there. So it becomes a full slice, lots of intensity, but nice and soft in terms of the new growth. So I love that. Okay, if you have hair that it's going all the way to the ends and I can't fold that, maybe right on top of my feather or my W, then I'm going to fold twice. Okay, so I fold once here, and then I can fold right up to the top, and I'm not affecting any of the lift, right? So I'm going to make sure it's nice and clean. Okay, so from there, we would have the rest of this little center section. If you want, you would continue on this line. I'm just going to tilt her up a little bit so you can see. I could continue with 2 more probably foils that would bring me to the center, and it would finish this entire section. Then I would go to the other side and do the exact same thing, right? And that would be my nape. So that is the beginning of the halo technique. Now, when it comes to the center, I said we're going to work vertically, right? That's the traditional technique. I'm going to show you a little bit of an alteration that makes it slightly more modern. I'm going to start on the very, very hairline. And this time I'm going to use foils, right? Because I know a lot of us are using foils in the salon. You might be using foils with a board as well, which is nice. which is good. And here I'm going to start my section on the hairline, but instead of starting vertically, I'm actually going to start on a slight 45-degree angle. This is going to help get a softer effect, right? Everything along the hairline at a 45-degree angle. Again, we know that it's going to give us the softest sort of transition, but still contrast at the ends. I'm also going to weave anything along the hairline. So you can go with back-to-back foils on a diagonal if you like, but we're going to do a bit of a weave. And that just gives it that bit of softness. So even if it's super blonde or super highlighted, as they pull the hair back off their face, especially if they're, your client is wearing their hair back, then it's not going to have any stark lines. So we're going to do this 45-degree angle. Oftentimes that very first foil is like their little baby sideburn, right? Like the very, very first one. Normally people don't have this much hair. It's usually a couple of little like 3 to 4 inch hairs, and you have a little foil that's like the size of this square, right? Like right here. So when we're doing mannequin hair, they do have a little bit more than what probably we would have normally. So it will look a little bit different, but ultimately you're just going to do a little tiny baby foil starting on a 45-degree angle, even if it is right in that sideburn section. So I'm going to do my weave. This is of course going to be a full highlight. Use my foil for this. And because it's the hairline, usually for a technique like this, this is where you're going to start quite close. We do want the foil to be, pretty tight to the regrowth so that, they get that brightness for as long as possible along the face. Now she has nice long hair that I'm going to have to swirl up here into my foil. Could have some longer foils, would be nice. But yeah, so I'll use these ones and just making sure lots of saturation. Okay. When I fold my foil, especially if you're working closer to the scalp, sometimes we need to be a little bit more careful, right? So that we don't get bleeding and we don't get any seeping. We always want to expect a little bit of expansion out of our lightener, about 1/8 of an inch, right? So you want to leave the actual product slightly below the line of the edge of your foil. And then the other thing I like to do is take this little lip here and fold it back underneath so that it's even a bit tighter, right? Just tightening that up. And then when I actually fold, I'm going to turn her to the side, especially for small sections, I'm going to place my comb and I'm going to fold right to the tightness of that highlight. And then the same thing on the other side, I'm going to fold in. It's going to turn into a bit of a triangle. Okay, the reason I like doing this is because it actually gets nice and tight up to where your foil is, but this also stays loose. So there's lots of air to breathe there, and I'm not tightening up that foil because I've got nice long hair in here and I don't want it to be a little tiny square. Okay, so maybe not on everybody's little sideburns would they have that, but definitely as you start moving back up into the hairline, that's what I would recommend. Okay, so now that first one is done, we're going to keep moving on that diagonal line. But each time I do it, I'm going to start pivoting my sectioning from being on a diagonal 45-degree, like this. I'm going to pivot a little bit more to a vertical. Okay, so it's going to be here, then I'm going to go here, then here, then here. And once I hit vertical, I'm going to continue through this section going back. Why are we doing this? Because we want gentle, gentle, gentle. We want nice, soft highlights that don't have any lines along the hairline. But as I get into the interior, this is all that hair that's going to be, throughout the look and moving a lot. And if I go more vertical, you're going to have more dimension. I think one of the struggles that we have right now with highlighting is getting contrast, because everything was so melted for so long, and now people want to see a little bit more contrast in the hair. So I'm going to go here again. Anything on the hairline is going to be a weave. So that could be a weave back to back, or you could leave a slice out in between. So that's up to you. A slice out in between can be a little bit less blonding in the front, So I would go, if you are going to leave a slice out in between, then you might want to add a little bit of a fuller weave so that you actually do get that blonde effect. Okay, so I'm just going to turn my lady this way. There we go. Okay, so we are going to get this foil in here. And then each time, I always like I said, to tighten up, turning my brush on the vertical, tightening up into the hairline. Do a little extra tuck there. And then I'm going to get in with my triangle section. Okay, we're going to turn one more time, even more. I'm going to show this to you again. Get out. Can you see that there? So now I'm almost vertical. Turn you this way. Leave a little bit of a section out. I'm going to come in and place my foil here again. This will be my last one that will be on any type of an angle, okay? The next one will have more of a vertical feel. However, what I'm going to do when I start going vertical is I'm going to start with a bit of a back comb. So I should be off the hairline, and that back comb is going to soften the root area. So we like the density and the contrast often through a vertical section, but maybe the root, we don't want to see that harsh line, right? So that's where we can take a vertical section, back comb, back comb, and then we get that softness through there. All right. So that is my last one. Now I'm going to go full vertical. However, what I will say too is I like going, it's like vertical, but almost. So here you can see a slight angle on that. So it doesn't have to be a lot. If you go full vertical, it can be still quite high contrast, but just a subtle tilt, just the most subtle tilt forward, I feel like is super helpful in terms of, you can see where her face is and where that line is. It's just barely tilted. And that does give a little bit of that softness already built in for you. So now for this section, I actually want to take quite a thick slice. This is all behind the hairline, right? So I've just tilt, or like this, tilt, and then full slice, but I'm going to back comb this a little bit. So I'm going to tip her head down for me. Get her down slightly. Okay, so I'm back combing, just flicking any of those little hairs. It doesn't have to be a ton. I think if we over back comb, then it's also a bit of a nightmare later when we're going in there. So I'm going to back comb a little bit. I like to place my foil and then flick all those little back combs up and out of the way slightly. You can also clip it if you want. I'm going to try without getting my arm in your face. Clip that out of the way. And then this is going to be my full slice. I do want to come in here and try to get as close up as I can with full saturation. That's why we want to get those baby hairs out of the way so that we can actually get in and fully saturate a clean slice, which means I'm getting just as light at the regrowth as I am at the ends. I'll show you that on the side here. Okay. This is how I would move through with my foiling all the way to the center back, leaving a slice out in between, and then applying my almost vertical, but with back combing. Now, if you don't want to back comb, then you can do the V or the W in terms of your application. I mean, the idea is we want to get nice light blondes. We want to have it with good contrast. So that's why we're going vertically. And we want to make sure, as we work through this center section that we're leaving hair out in between and we're getting lots of dimension, right? So this is going to be my last alternative, and then I'm going to show you what we would do through the money piece. Another alternative, go almost vertical here on my slice, okay? So leave a slice out in between, is to do a slice and then a weave over top. That kind of gives you a little bit of softness with the weave laying over top. It's slightly angled. So here I'm going to go full slice, no back combing. And I'm going to start with my W, so one on each side and a little through the middle. Just gives a little softness at that root area. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, so I'm going to apply that. We're going to imagine these ends are already blonde. We're going to just sweep those to the side. Okay. So I'm up. The other thing I like about a slight tilt forward, even where we're supposed to be vertical, is the fact that they hold the foils sort of hold a little bit better because they're not dragging down on that vertical line. They have somewhere to fall to, which I think is also nice. Okay, so I do a full slice, and then right behind it, I'm going to do a weave, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to give even more density to the tips of the hair because I've got weave then slice. But my weave is going to just give a little bit of like a softer root area to the slice that's behind it. This is actually one of my favorite ways, like old school when I first started doing hair. I did every single client. It was like a slice and then a weave. And just when you put those two back to back, it gives the most beautiful highlight effect. You have lots of lightness, but lots of blending. So this one's going right to the regrowth, basically, as close as I can get. And then I'm going to leave a slice out, right? So I'm not going slice weave the whole way through. I'm going to go with a bit of a slice out. Okay. So we're going to take a look at this, and this is kind of like a pre-done on the other side here. So we start with our little guy right against the hairline, right? Then we start tilting a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more until we're almost vertical. And then you're going to continue that line all the way to the center back. Now you can choose to do a slice out and a full slice, a slice out and a full slice. Okay, that would give you maximum contrast. That would be like the classic traditional way to do it. Make sure that the slice that you take is thin. This is not meant to be giant, chunky highlights. Actually, the slice should be so thin that you can read a newspaper through it. And what that also does is it allows you to actually saturate through the hair quickly and also not get a lot of chunky lines. The alternative that I'm giving you is to take a slice a little bit thicker, but back comb it so that the root line is not as strong, but you get lots of intensity through the tips of the hair. Leave a slice out, back comb. And then last alternative, what I just gave you, is to do a slice and then a weave over top, right? Which also helps to blend. So lots of ways to get lots of blonde and always keeping in mind how much of that dark is going to be between the hair so that you know how much contrast you're going to have left, right? That negative space is super important. Okay, this is my last little section, which is going to be our money piece. This is the top of the head. When we're working on the top section, I'm going to do it here as well. It is a halo, so from recession to recession and then split in two. The only thing that is different here that I'm going to show you is I'm going to do the very front section, which is about this big, maybe 1 inch to 2 inches, depending on the density of the hair. I'm going to go back off of the hairline, and I'm going to start with this pattern that I've done here that I will show you. So this is how we're going to start the top of the head. And it's a little bit more of a modern money piece. And to me, it's kind of foolproof. Like I could use this on just about anybody. It always gives a really, really beautiful effect. So with this mannequin, let's just go here for a second. Okay, so with this mannequin, traditionally, you would start on an angle, and it doesn't matter if they part from in the middle or on the left or on the right, you always do this down the middle. It always looks good, doesn't matter where they part their hair, I promise. We're gonna start on an angle going backwards, which often, like diagonal back, often basically emulates the hairline. Most of us have a little bit of a recession, right? Or a lot of one. I have a lot. So it's going to go on an angle backwards just if you follow the natural hairline, period. As you work through this top section, whatever angle you've created, you just want that subtle diagonal. You would keep working on that diagonal line all the way through the top, the exact same diagonal back, until eventually you end up in the crown. And you might have a little tiny triangle back here as you're foiling through. That will be something that we can either back comb or weave through at the end. But there's going to be a little section left that you just can't keep slicing through anymore because of the angle that you're working on. That will happen on both sides, and that's okay. So I'm going to take that triangle out right now because I know that that's what's going to happen for me. And we're just, oh, look at what I have. That's how magnetic that is. It's attached to my clip. The swatches from BLONDME. Okay, so I'm going to just look here at this section. And you can see, just get her off of there, that I'm going to be working from that recession point all the way to the back of the head on the same angle. And it's going to basically turn into a little bit of a triangle back here. So that is the back of the head. You can see that little hair that I clipped away. That's what we'll deal with separately. Okay, money piece. The infamous money piece. Okay. So right here, we're going to take 4 sections. It depends on how thick their hair is, but I like to make this quite large actually, because there's nothing worse than doing this perfect money piece and then it like barely shows. So I mean, it's up to you how much you want to do. But the first slice that is against the hairline, for the halo technique, the key is that it's on a 45-degree angle. What you do within this section is up to you. So for my first slice, I'm going to take a baby light, like a micro, like every other foil, every other weave. And I like to take this right on the actual hairline. So meaning I don't want, hang on one second. I don't want to be foiling with any hair underneath this section any way whatsoever. So I'm going to pick it up from here. And I almost feel like a seamstress, like needling or sewing or something when I'm doing this. It's like so many little pickups. Okay, so the key is that the hair that's right in front of the face is the hair that I foil, not this one. And the reason for that is I can get more over direction and not have any hair in the way. This makes a softer hairline. Okay, so I'm going to take that weave back, take my section now. I mean, very few people have this much hair in the front of the head, but I'll just show you. Like that's the weave. So it almost looks like 50% of the hair. Like you saw how much I took out of there. But it's super, super tiny. So this is going to be my foil. And we are going to foil for any client as close to the scalp if you want that really, really lightness right against the face, as close to the scalp as possible. I'm going to flip to my quick ways here just because they're a bit longer. I'm going to take this. Put my quick way here. And we are going to, get as close up there as possible. If there's little baby hairs, just like on the hairline, little tiny millimeter long hairs, just whisk them out and forward. We definitely don't want to be coloring those tiny little baby hairs, because oftentimes they actually do help us blend as they're brushed back into the hair after. So I would just get those out. Okay, just for the sake of the foil, we're going to assume that those ends are light. Okay, and that is my first slice, or my first weave. Okay, then this hair goes out in between, right? Whatever was there. Now I'm going to go right behind that with a full slice. I'm not going to back comb this. It's just a full slice highlight right behind that section. But the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to feather a little bit so I don't have too harsh of a line, because this is going to be right against the face as it folds back. Why I like a nice full slice here is because I want lots of pop of money piece there. So I'm just going to lightly feather the regrowth, but I'm essentially going straight to the scalp. I find that this is, super helpful in getting that really bright pop of color. And also the sectioning goes from the center to the recession on both sides. So we're going to do exactly this on both sides, which means that no matter where they part their hair, you will always have that nice money piece, right? So if they part way over to the side one time, they're likely not parting down here. So as long as it's the recession or anywhere in between, you're going to be fully covered. So I've got my micro light, my 50% weave right against the face. Those hairs come out right behind it, full slice. Little bit of feathering. Now I'm going to go again, full slice, but I'm actually going to go a bit bigger. I'm going to take a thicker section. Okay, and this one, nice big section, back comb. So now I'm going to back comb here, however much you feel you need, and it's really just for the softness at the root area. Okay, so we don't need a crazy amount, but we want to have good, soft, and that's actually a little bit too thick here. Just going to move in the front. So if the hair is a bit too thick after you've back combed it, you can remove some. Make sure that you have enough that you're not struggling to saturate it, right? Because that's the worst. So for this one, I'm not going right up to the scalp. I'm going to remove any little guys that are in there. You can clip them if you want. I sometimes like to do that. This is going to have a bit more of a root drag on it on purpose, because if my first two foils are right against the hairline, and then the next section is going to be a little bit more of a root drag, what will that look like when it comes down? It's going to start going from high to low in terms of where the root is. So it's actually going to have already a bit of a softness there. Okay, so again, for argument's sake, we're going to say those are blonde. And just fold it right up to that section. Now behind this one, we're going to do one more, and it's going to be a weave. Okay, so you want to take a nice, good, solid section on that same angle. Put that out of the way. So I'll show you the angle here. Okay. I'm going to take that section. I'm going to put one final weave, but with a lot of drag. So I'm not putting this right up to the scalp. I'm building on top and dragging lower each time. But what else I'm doing is I'm building up blonde on the tips of the hair, but I'm creating a blended effect at the roots, which is basically what a lot of the time we're looking for. So I'm going to take this last section here, and I'm going to do the same kind of foil that I did on the very, very front, which is kind of like a 50% of the hair. It should almost look like a slice. It's going to have quite a bit. The density on this mannequin is a little bit, it's a little bit crazy, but you can see kind of there, a little bit more here. There we go. Something along those lines. So it's got enough to it that it actually is going to show up at the tips. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. And then in here, I am going to feather You could also backcomb this. If they have enough density to the hair, you could backcomb it, but I'm just going to feather this highlight. Oops. At the root area and have quite a bit of drag on it. So that means because I'm not painting way up here, it's already going to be lower and it's going to match more with my section underneath, which is my backcombed full slice. Okay, so again, I'll show you that. Here we go. Okay, so it's a weave but feathered, lots of product. And then I'm going to fold that if I need to twice so that I don't have anything landing on my little V shape. Okay, so when I'm clipping this out of the way, if you do need to, if they need to be able to see, if you're using quick ways, I just fold them, roll them kind of back off the face. She looks like a little 70s mama. So you can roll that back off the face, but be very gentle. These little silver clips are really great for that as well. So now I've reached this point here. So I'm on this angle from here to here. I've done my money piece section. For this, which is the main piece left in the rest of the look, this is going to be up to you. You can continue through here, leave a slice out, do a slice, then a weave, then leave a slice out. It's always on that 45. Something else that's kind of nice is continue through the section, but start moving with more hair in between the foils as you move to the crown. So it's less and less highlights, almost like in terms of concentration, not only with the way that you apply them or the size of the weave, you can look at how tightly packed you put it, right? So you can go less and less and less. And then it would be the exact same thing on the other side of the head, right? Sometimes I like to do tandem, so like side by side, just back and forth, so that you're always getting the same lift as you go through. And what ends up happening is at the very back of the head, because of the angle, you end up with this little triangle of hair. And this will happen on this side as well. So you end up with basically a little triangle of random hair that you're like, what do I do with that section? So in that case, you're just going to take that section in the back of the head. You can take a big weave or a baby weave, whichever you like. Sometimes I like a big weave, a little bit of a back comb, and you're going to foil that section just so they have something totally complete within the crown. Okay, friends, I have completed the application. Hopefully you guys can see how versatile this technique is. I'm going to bring us back over here for half a second. Just as a reminder, again, that this is the money piece section that I did. It's all got the foils in here. You know, move through your sections, moving back. Also an amazing option for doing just a partial. You could do the side and the front and the nape, and that's it. And maybe every 6 to 8 months, you would do the entire thing. All right. I think that is where we're going to call it for today. I really appreciate everyone's time today. You can, if you like to watch more videos from us at Schwarzkopf Can, you can stay and check out other educational videos on our YouTube channel. You can also follow me if you like at Michelle Oliver Hair. And I just really appreciate everyone being here today. And hopefully you leave feeling inspired and got a little tip or trick or something that you put in your pocket that you can try in the salon. So I just want to say a huge thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day and happy coloring.